Bill Gates co-founded Microsoft, and when he left the company, he and his wife started an innovative foundation involved in projects all around the world.
Despite being on the cutting edge, the Gateses say there are still things they didn't see coming, and that is the theme of this. It's Bill and Melinda Gates' annual letter. Mr. Gates joins us live this morning from New York City to talk about the findings in the letter. Sir, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Mr. Gates, you partnered with at-home DNA testing company 23andMe. You wanted to study preterm births, which is the leading cause of death for children under the age of 5. This has led to a possible breakthrough. What can you tell us about this?
What they did was they had women indicate whether they'd had a premature birth or not as they were doing that DNA test. And then we looked to see was there any genetic association. And in fact, the genes that process a mineral called selenium were changed in those women who had lots of premature births. So now we're out testing that idea. Looks like giving women extra selenium will cut that number down. It's about 10% to births, and so it's really a great tragedy. It hasn't been studied as much as it should. So our foundation hopes that idea and others, we can bring those numbers down dramatically.
That's considerable.
There's a lot of interesting topics in your letter here, but it also addresses climate change. What do you think the public gets wrong about climate change and its causes?
Well, you have some people who aren't convinced it's a problem, and that's tough because we need to take action. Unfortunately, there's also people who think it's easy to solve because the discussion's been so much about electricity and moving to renewable sources, but electricity is only a quarter of the emissions. And so I talk about other things like making cement and steel and how much the world is going to build lots of new buildings in the decades ahead. And so unless we clean up all the sources, we won't get to this goal, which is a very tough goal of zero emissions. And so the amount of innovation that we're going to need so that the clean steel and clean cement don't cost a lot more than the way we do it today, we've got to get more research in order to tackle this problem.
One of the issues you also point out in your letter is that data can be sexist. How can it be sexist? What are these implications?
Well, my wife Melinda and I were surprised that as we looked at issues like household income or using cell phones, that it wasn't broken down so you could see were women trailing. Even as we did work in agriculture, understanding, okay, which crops were the women involved with. And we saw that as women made money, they would use it more for education for the kids. And so it would help lift their families out of poverty. And so we've been working to try and get lots of data and then say, okay, let's deal with this gender imbalance. But we started out with the world not knowing much about how bad it was.
Well, and sadly, we're a little bit out of time this morning. I know you'll be on CBS this morning later on, but thank you for this interesting conversation, and we'll hear more here on CBS later on this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gates. We look forward to hearing from you and your wife coming up on CBS this morning.